Today we're talking about paid user acquisition. It's a scrappy and practical guide. I'm Mike. I'm the CEO of Iron Horse Games. There's one person who works at Iron Horse Games, and it's me. I'm a publisher of games on iOS and Android, and we've generated 11 million installs across 19 titles in the last year alone. Most of that's on Google Play, and most of that is being driven as a result of paid user acquisition that we're doing across titles. I predominantly publish idle games for those who are curious about the genre. Below are some of the titles that I've published in the last year. So what am I going to talk about? Marketing, in short. More broadly, I'm going to be talking about marketing in 3 phases on Google Play. So open beta, launch, and live. Each of them have a different set of rules and strategies that apply to them, and I'm going to walk you through how I approach each of those different phases. Apple's a little bit more simplistic, so I'm going to be talking about marketing in the live phase on Apple. And then I'm going to give some tips and tricks and pointers about effectively marketing with Facebook and Unity. Below, you can see 2 of the titles. One has a tag for beta, that's a title in open beta, and the other one doesn't because that title's live. So I'm focusing on Google Play primarily today, and the reason why is pretty self-explanatory. Google Play organic installs are significantly larger, in my experience, than Apple's organic installs. This means 2 things practically when you start thinking about it from a marketing perspective. The first is, and the most positive is, your return on investment can be significantly higher from your user acquisition on Google Play relative to Apple. The not so rosy scenario is that you have more of a safety net on Google Play than you do on Apple, as organic installs that are generated from your marketing spend can help save your bacon if you find that your marketing campaigns aren't net neutral or ROI positive. So a quick overview about open beta for Google Play. So in the past, open beta used to be treated as a test market. It's really, really important that you don't continue to do this. If you need to do bug testing, you need to make sure in-app purchases or ads are working. Do a larger closed beta on Google Play and get users in to make sure that it's stable. The reason why is that the users that you can generate in open beta are significant in terms of both the volume but also the value that they drive. So wasting those users on a game that either isn't stable or you're not quite sure about monetization and retention or your ads aren't particularly working well is a huge missed opportunity. Open beta is a really important period for Iron Horse Games, so don't waste it. The second one is keywords. Keywords are one of those things that everyone talks about quite a bit, and they're really important, particularly in open beta, and it's a critical part of the strategy for open beta. So that strategy, and I'm going to walk through each of these steps in turn, is the most complicated thing that we're going to talk about today. But it has a lot of value to it. So the first is choosing and optimizing the keywords that you're going to use for your game. So we'll walk through how you do that. Then you're going to be marketing your game to increase organic installs from those keywords. Specifically what you're doing is you're marketing your game to increase rank on keywords, which then generate more organic installs. And then you're compiling all these results together to make a pitch to Google Play for featuring in early access. And for folks who don't know, in open beta there is a feature that you can get, and it's an early access collection. So it's a list of games that the Google Play team is deemed worthy of featuring. So you get significantly increased exposure and installs as a result of it. But the important thing is you have to make a case as to why they should feature the game and support you. So how many installs can you get from ASO? On a title that had no early access feature, 7,000 out of my 13,000 installs that came into the game organically in a month came from search traffic. On a title that did have an early access feature, 15,000 out of 31,000 organic installs came into the game in a month. What's important to note here is the volumes aren't, they're nothing to write home about yet, but the quality is. Search and ASO installs are the most valuable users that I've acquired in my game in open beta. So they are every bit as valuable as users that I've acquired via user acquisition, and they're significantly more valuable than organic users, particularly when you start looking at early access featuring, which means you get a lot more traffic. So talking about the steps of how to actually do this. The first one is choosing your keywords. This one's pretty basic. When you're trying to figure out which keywords to use, I typically use a combination of common sense and then also look at what my competitors are doing. So from a common sense perspective, if you have a tower defense game, there's a pretty good chance that you want two of your keywords to be tower and defense, tower defense combined. I know it's a shocking revelation, but those are some keywords that you should chase after. Figuring out which keywords are good is a whole nother matter entirely, and this requires quite a bit of trial and error. So you can use Sensor Tower, and I use Sensor Tower, and there are a number of tools out there that are free. Sensor Tower is free up to a certain point. But essentially what they do is they give you an approximation of the amount of traffic that you can get from a particular keyword. And then they can also show you the difficulty. So if it's a 9 or above, it's going to be really challenging to get to rank in that keyword. Typically from a traffic perspective, you want to be 5, 6, 7 is usually a pretty good rate there. You also want to be choosing 3 to 5 different keywords to focus on. The reason is a little depressing. It's because most of your keywords aren't going to work. The reality of it is each game's a little bit different, and when somebody's searching tower defense, they may not choose your game based solely on the icon or some strange thing that you did with the title, so you need to hedge your bets and have a couple keywords that you're focusing on because most of them aren't going to work out. So optimizing your keywords. This one has required a lot of trial and error on my part, and it's something that I'm pretty proud to have figured out some small element of. So keywords are composed of kind of a keyword bank. So your bundle ID, description, short description, title, and subtitle all form a word bank, right? And your keywords are pulled from that word bank. And what you want to be focusing here on is not the number of times you're mentioning a keyword, but the density of that keyword relative to the overall number of words in your description. For instance, this is my game, Uncivil War below, and the word card has a density of 3%. It's like 3% of all words in that keyword bank is card. And the reason for that is I really want people who are searching card to find my game. App Tweak is the tool I use for this. This is a free tool. They have a keyword density tool that's really great. You can also see which keyword density your competitors are using to figure things out. So this step is split into 2 phases, and I've done both. So the first step, if you're fortunate enough to be in this position, is how you do marketing when you have money. The second step, which is the reality for a lot of folks who are starting out marketing, is how you market when you don't have any money. Both are pretty interesting for different reasons. The first thing you want to do is get an attribution partner in the game. This is an SDK that tracks where your installs are coming from and helps assign value. These are all mostly the same these days. Adjust, Kochava, AppsFlyer, they all more or less offer the same types of services. The key difference is the level of service that you get from the partner relative to the size of your business. So for me, when I started, I was a very small business, and I'm used to being ignored when you're a small business. I think folks can relate to that. That never happened with AppsFlyer. I'd have very basic questions. They would always answer it as if I were a $1 million partner. I'm paying them a huge amount of money. So I can't endorse them strongly enough. I think AppsFlyer is great. I use Facebook and Unity to start my campaigns. There are a couple reasons for this. 1, the traffic's high quality, and 2, it's under your control. You don't have to talk to anybody at Facebook or Unity to kick these campaigns off. You can just do it yourself. And with AppsFlyer, you don't have to put in the Unity or Facebook SDKs or any of that stuff. You can just put AppsFlyer in, and then it takes care of the attribution piece for you. Typically, you're spending $50 to $100 a day, so you're not breaking the bank here to acquire these users. Targeting should really be focused. 1, you can only do targeting on Facebook at the start, and then 2, it should really be focused around the types of users that are in the genre of game that you're working on. I focus on tier 1 markets for my games. Depending on the audience you appeal to, you may want to change that up. But for me, that's US, UK, Germany, France, Canada, and Australia. So how do you market without any money? There are 2 ways to do it. In my experience, I've done them both. The first one is you can get an integration bonus. So this can be anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 from an ad partner. The way that this works, and it's complicated, is you go to the ad partner and say, I want to put your ads in the game. And they're like, great, here's the SDK. You say, not so fast, give me $20,000. And they say, okay. The reality of the situation is the conversation is actually very close to that. Ask for some advertising credits, and typically you can get anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 in free advertising just for getting their SDK in the game and showing off your ads. If you have any kind of background in games, they're usually jumping at the chance, and they really care about getting new partners to integrate their ads. So there's no harm in asking. If they say no, move on to the next partner and ask them. The second way to do this, and again, this is going to be really complicated, is getting a line of credit from marketing partners. Again, the way that this one works is you say, hey, I want a line of credit. And they say, okay. And then you get a line of credit for either $50,000 or $100,000. The key with a line of credit is you have to pay that money back. So be careful, because anything you spend, you're going to have to pay back for them. I've had lines of credit extended through 5 marketing partners with no background or credit checks for a total of like a few $1 million. It's as simple as asking for it. So from this step, once you have your marketing going on Facebook and Unity, you can start monitoring your keywords. So something really great happened on the Google Play Developer Console last year that I think a lot of people missed. You can actually see how many search installs you're getting out of your total organics. So if you go to the Dev Console and user acquisition and look at search, you can see the total number of installs. Look at the red arrow, and you should be able to see it. So the things that you're looking for here are volume and quality. So if your volume isn't looking like the volume that I quoted earlier in an earlier slide, there are 2 things that are wrong. So one is you need more user acquisition to be able to chart in a particular keyword, or that keyword is not resonating with your game. So using the tower defense example, if you have a game that's about tower defense, but the icon looks like it's a casual match 3, there's going to be a lot of cognitive dissonance for people searching, and they're probably not going to download your game. So you want that to be a holistic package with the title, screenshots, and icon reinforcing what the genre of the game is about. If you're having quality issues, you need to change keywords. Different keywords have different qualities. So I've seen keywords with very low ARPUs driving users in the game. I've seen keywords with very high ARPUs driving users in the game. This is trial and error, and really looking at what competitors are doing for a leg up here as well. Troubleshooting is either changing keywords, increasing your marketing, or mixing around the density to increase density on a particular keyword. I always target the top 10 or 15 in terms of a keyword. It's attainable, it's easy, it generates organic installs, and those organic installs are really valuable. So once you've got your keyword installs floating in, and you have marketing going, you're also going to apply for early access. So this is kind of the culmination of the open beta process. Google's a business, and what they care about is return on investment for their investment. So when they're thinking about where they're going to put their features, what they're really choosing is like, well, does Mike have the game with the highest ARPU this week? And is he supporting it as fully as these other partners are? So they're making a differentiation between you and other partners, and you're competing. So you need to make that case, and the case really needs to be around the support that you're giving the game from a marketing perspective, the growth that you've seen and driven on your own, but also the potential, right? So far, our ARPU is 50 cents. If we had another 50,000 installs, that would be a great business for both of us. So make that case. Don't be shy about talking about the efforts that you made to grow the game to that point. Google will listen. So moving on to the launch step. This is probably the most important part of the presentation today, and it's the one you should pay the closest attention to. This window lasts 30 days, and it begins the moment that you push from open beta to production. During this time, your organic to paid ratios are going to be incredibly inflated, the most inflated you've ever seen for the game and will ever see for the game. So this can be as high as 4 organic installs for every paid install, and this is without a feature. So forget about features for the moment. We're talking about if you buy 1 install, you're generating 3 to 4 installs organically in this first 30-day window. So for me, this is one below where we spent lightly, and it was a 1-to-2 ratio over the first 30 days. So the launch strategy here is much simpler. You want to spend money in the first 30 days, and you want to spend as much as you possibly can to generate as many organics as you can. Apple's a little bit different. So when you spend, you move up on charts and it increases visibility. On Google, when you spend, it increases visibility through the lists in the stores. So all the lists that you're seeing here are where you're going to see your games icon populated. And it can generate a significant amount of installs. How many installs? So this is averaged across multiple titles. It acquired 75,000 installs on average, generated 175,000 installs organically without any feature from Google Play. The cost of those 75,000 installs is obviously variable depending on the strategy that you're using, but you can get that for as low as $25,000 if you're really scrappy with your install sources. So step one, and this is the most important step, is you need to learn from open beta. If you're going to spend $25,000 or even $75,000 on paid user acquisition in the launch window, you need to know what you're doing, and the best way to learn is in open beta. So figure out which marketing creative was best for you, which channels and targeting had the highest ROI. So this is really important. I think, when you talk about open beta and think about testing, there actually is one thing you want to be testing, and that's your marketing creative and strategy. And you want to be rock solid on that before you move on to this phase. You also want to be decently capitalized, so don't spend all that money that you make in open beta. You also want to make sure that your keyword's in good shape for launch, because those can be significant contributors of traffic as well. Step two is choosing your marketing partners. So for me, my two main partners are Unity and Facebook. I also use Tapjoy and IronSource. Unity and Facebook are self-service and great. You need a little bit of help on setup with Tapjoy and IronSource, but the quality is great. So I'm going to go through Unity and Facebook in detail with some tips, but first some facts. On Unity, it's not going to exceed your budget or your bid. So this is actually really great if you're doing scrappy marketing, because you'll wake up one day and instead of blowing the budget out and having overspent doing user acquisition, your traffic will just disappear, right? So your bids won't go up. They will just disappear entirely. It only uses video creative, so it's important to get as many of those generated as possible. I typically have 3 to 4 different video ads that I'm running on a per game basis, and they don't have to be wildly different, right? You don't need custom different video ads. You can do slight variations. And you can get a line of credit from Unity. They're really great to work with in that regard. So some tips. These are things that have cost a decent amount of money for me to learn. Hopefully they're helpful to you. So blind bidding around your ARPU. In the launch window, you have such an increased volume of organic installs as a result of your marketing that you want to be driving as much paid acquisition as you can. So blind bidding is a great way to do that. So if you have a 50-cent ARPU from Unity users and you know that from open beta, you may be able to drive, let's say, 10 installs at that 50-cent bid, right? You may find that if you bid a little bit lower, so blind bid down by 10 cents, see what happens. Maybe it's the same. Maybe you get 50 installs for that. What I've found is that if you increase that bid to 75 cents, 80 cents, 90 cents, you can see multiples of installs. So there are these kind of weird hidden trip lines on Unity around bids that can unleash way, way larger volumes of traffic than what you would see if you just bid around your ARPU. And you may make that calculation in your head to say, you know what, it's better for me to lose 10 cents on a user during the launch window if I'm driving 3 or 4 organic installs for every user. Like you're comfortable with that trade-off. But the only way to know is really to play around with that bid per geo, particularly in the US. Slight creative variations. So one of the things that most people who are doing paid user acquisition struggle with is a rise in CPI. This is natural. People are getting exposed to your ads. They become less inclined to download them if they passed on your ad creative the first time through. A great way to fight against this isn't to increase your bid. It's to add new creative. Even if that creative performs poorly relative to your main video, adding new creative artificially triggers Unity's system to give you an impression bump. Because from Unity's perspective, what they're saying is, well, I want to give this ad a good shot. They don't know if it's a bad ad or not yet. They have to give you enough impressions to figure it out. So put up new video, you'll get an impression bump, you'll keep your bids the same, and you'll get traffic at the same bid without having to increase your bids. I do this a lot, and I do it with slight variations of my video creative. If you do it too much, you're going to hear from your Unity rep, and you really should experiment with your videos, but this is a great way around constantly raising your bids. Finally, share your session and revenue information with Unity, because later on they can come up with some really interesting audience targeting for you that has higher ROI with more or less the same CPI. So their day 7 ROA campaigns are great. Folks aren't using those. Unity's got some really advanced targeting stuff that you should be checking out. Step 2, Facebook. So they won't exceed your budget, but boy, they'll exceed your bid. So if anyone here has spent on Facebook, you've found out that if you go to bed on a Friday and you're getting users for 10 cents, you may wake up on a Saturday if you're doing low-cost bidding, and those users now cost $1. So you have to be very careful, especially with low-cost bidding and the amount of budget that you're allocating for your campaign, so that you don't find yourself quickly underwater. They use display and video ads. You can get a line of credit. The Facebook team has actually been really great to work with from a small developer standpoint, even when I was spending significantly less than I was spending now. So some tips here. Facebook's got a honeymoon period. So, you know, when you have a new job, a new girlfriend or boyfriend, everything is wonderful for the first couple months, and then you find out what it's really like. Facebook's the same way. So the first 2 months, you're going to see amazing CPIs. And in your mind, you're going to say, man, I'm going to be able to spend for days on Facebook with 20 cent CPIs. This is amazing. That goes away. So you have a limited period of time where you're going to get those CPIs. And once you have run out that clock, you can't go back. So you want to make sure that you are spending carefully on Facebook, particularly in open beta, because you don't want to run out your honeymoon outside of the launch window. Another tip, and this is one that I think people miss all the time, display ads are just fine. I mean, video ads are really popular, playable ads are really popular. The bread and butter of my entire business, static display ads. Most of my advertising on Facebook comes through static display ads. They work just fine. CTRs are comparable with video ads. CPIs are even less. They are the workhorse of my marketing campaigns on Facebook. Another weird one on Facebook is low-cost bidding. So low-cost bidding, essentially, I've mentioned it a couple times, but it's where you allow Facebook to determine what the CPI is going to be for your campaign. So you allow their algorithm to figure it out for you. This is great during the honeymoon period, and after it, it is not great. Your CPIs will escalate quickly. So the strategy for dealing with this, start with a low-cost campaign. As soon as your CPIs go up, you put a bid cap on it. Once you put that bid cap on it, your impressions are going to tank. The thing you then do is take that exact same campaign with the exact same targeting and creatives, and you start a new campaign with the bid cap in place at the start. You will see an impression bump similar to what you saw in Unity, and you can do this over and over and over and over again. So it's how you avoid these situations where you have perennial, massively large CPIs that are unavoidable. You keep riding these impression bump waves. As they peter out, and they will peter out because you can't acquire at those CPIs, do another one, and then do it again. Over time, the ARPU from those campaigns are going to decay, so sooner or later you're going to need to rotate your creative and your targeting, but this has been an effective strategy for me. So the wonderful days of launch are done. Your ratios of 1 paid to 3 organic are over, but it's still great. For me, I usually see 1 to 2 organic installs for every paid install on Google Play. The thing I'm doing now is I'm using all the data from launch, all the marketing to make the case for a feature. I actually used to ask for a feature at launch, which is a risk for myself, and it's a risk for Google, right? They don't know how the game's going to perform. They know I've spent some amount of money on marketing and had some success, but they really have no idea what the game's true potential is. If I'm doing the marketing in month 1, I'm already showing them, hey, I took the risk. This is the opportunity for the business represented to you. Like, you don't have to take any risk. I already proved it to you. And the game looks great. So I'd really love your support with a new and updated feature. This has been a strategy that I transitioned to 4 or 5 months ago. It's been effective each time I tried. It's also really worth trying out new marketing partners. There's a lot of challenge to trying out and integrating new marketing partners, but it's really worthwhile doing it, especially on games that have been around for a while. Recently started marketing with Iron Source on a few games that I've been marketing actively for the last 7 or 8 months, and it's like the first day I marketed. The ARPUs are great, CPIs are reasonable, So the only way you do that is to try marketing partners. I tried 5 other partners before I found one that works, so there's going to be a lot of churn in that process. But try a new one every month. Apple's different, unfortunately, in a bad way. So paid to organic ratios on Apple are 4 to 7 paid installs to 1 organic. So not awesome. I don't do any marketing on Apple until I've done a tremendous amount of marketing on Google, and the reason why is there is no safety net. So if you lose money on your campaign, you lose money, period. So with Apple, I use all the targeting and the ARPU targets that we're working on Google Play and take those over to Apple, and it's been pretty effective. The key difference between Apple and Google is that chart positions matter. So the higher you are in games, the more organic installs you're going to see. Unfortunately, in my experience, it's not enough to compensate for the cost. So 2 months ago, tried an experiment. We spent $4,000 a day to acquire 4,000 installs per day to get the top 300 in games, and it yielded 100 to 200 additional organics per day. So the current estimates to get to the top 100 in games is that it's going to require, and this is in the US, it requires 10,000 installs per day just to get in the top 100 in games. And I'm not sure what organics look like there, but I know what the cost associated with 10,000 paid users is per day is quite high. So you can infer from that what you will. Wrap up. So for me, the most important points to take home, keywords matter, particularly in open beta, especially when you don't really know what the ARPU of your game is going to be. Any free installs are really helpful. Marketing during that launch window has become like a critical part of the backbone of my strategy. In a lot of ways, it's replaced a huge amount of the traffic I used to rely on from Apple and Google features. And then just generally speaking, Google Play organic installs are significantly higher than Apple installs. If you're in a unique position where you have a game that has massive ARPUs and you have an unlimited budget, you may find that in the top 3 or 5 spots on the games category, this isn't true, right? Apple has just boundless and endless organic installs. Unfortunately, I haven't done it, so I can't say that that's the case. And it is rarefied air to be there. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about anything I said. Hi. Hi. But I can hear you just fine.
So here's the question. First of all, great talk. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, have you tested UAC or AdMobs?
I have,
What's your experience there?
Yeah. So the question was, the microphone's not on. So I'll just. Oh, there we go. It's back on. The question was, have I tested UAC? UAC is great. The challenge with UAC is you have to make a pretty meaty commitment from a spend standpoint to figure out if it works. And really, it takes about 30 days of spend to figure out whether or not you're going to see ROI. So typically, for a UAC test, I'm bidding at $30 to $35 from an eCPM perspective. It doesn't come in at that, but the CPI is high to start. And then I'm spending about $1,000 a day, between $500 and $1,000 a day. If you drop your bid too low on UAC, you stop getting video ad views, and it's been my experience that video ad views are the thing that's actually driving user acquisition behavior. And then one other note on UAC, your ARPUs really need to be in like the $30 to $40 range, and your conversion rate needs to be 1 to 3%. For UAC really to back out. So you need to make sure depth of spend there is there, because I haven't really seen CPIs below like 275. Cool. Sure.
Hello. Is that working now, or is the microphone even working, or I'll just yell at you?
You can, just yell and I'll repeat your question.
Okay. Just wondering if you've seen any shift in the past year or two as far as channels on Facebook go between Instagram and actual Facebook acquired users.
Sure. The question was, have I seen any shifts in the last year or two after Facebook acquired Instagram? Yeah, I have. So you can't track this on Google Play, but you can track it on Apple. So Apple splits Instagram traffic out separately from the rest of your Facebook traffic, so you can actually see the return on investment for Instagram users. And in my games, it was not good. So I actually, while it increases the volume and impressions you can get from Facebook campaigns, the overall quality was decreasing. So on 99% of my campaigns, I don't target Instagram. And my Facebook rep yells at me all the time about it and says the traffic's great, but I just haven't seen it in the Facebook interface. You can't split it out on Google Play, but I'm kind of assuming that the quality is similar on Android and iOS. Yeah, no problem.
Great talk, thank you.
I don't think the mic works.
Great talk, thank you very much. You were mentioning the honeymoon period when running ads. Is that honeymoon period reset per campaign or per game that you're advertising, or kind of what is that honeymoon period associated with?
Sure. The question was, I mentioned the honeymoon period on Facebook ads. Does it reset per campaign, per account, per? Is there anything that resets it, basically, right? There are two things that trigger it. It's either 1 to 2 months with moderate spend, $20,000 to $30,000 in spend per month. You get about 1 to 2 months there. If you front load all that, which I've done on a recent campaign, that honeymoon period can be 3 weeks. So it can be really fast. So it's really driven by level of spend as much as time. I think that you can reset it with different ad accounts. So you might be able to game that system a little bit on the Facebook side, but I'd be careful with that too, because I'm almost certain it breaks Facebook's terms of service. Cool.
Thanks for a great talk. For our game, the average revenue per iOS user is like roughly double Android. Have you seen similar things, and what do you do about that?
Yeah, so the question was, ARPUs on iOS are 2x what they are on Google Play. So that's usually related to geo mix, particularly on Google Play. You're seeing a lot of Russian and Brazilian traffic organically, and you can't control that, right? So that traffic comes in whether you want it or not. And it typically doesn't have super high ARPU relative to what you're seeing in the US and Western European countries. If you break it out by Western geos, it's actually much closer. So when I look at US and Western Europe, and then I look at US and Western Europe on iOS, it's significantly higher. It's still higher on iOS than it is on Google Play, but the organics that I can generate with my marketing spend kind of make up for the fact that it's a little bit lower quality. Hopefully that answers your question.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you very much.
Great. I think our time is done. Is that right? I can't see you, but I assume you're saying stop talking. Okay.